everybody, I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just wanted to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over the final 3 episodes of the Andor series. So if you haven't watched those episodes yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disney Plus, check out all 3 of those episodes, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, join in with me to break down our favorite moments from the final 3 episodes of the Andor series. It's Jon Jon Rico.
Make it stop. Make it stop.
Oh, man. Whew. I mean,
that was kind of dark. But I don't want the show to ever stop, but now it's stopped.
I know.
I
look, and that's exactly how I wanted to start, this recap. I got everything I wanted. I got everything I wanted and more. And like there, I don't even know the correct word for this, for getting absolutely everything I wanted and then being so sad at the realization that it's over. Like it's over.
They're sweet but very fulfilling at the same time. Yeah,
exactly. Because this
that's the mark of good television right there.
Absolutely. This series has been incredible. Both seasons have been incredible, but it's just gotten better and better and better. Like I feel like with every chunk of this season, and now it's like I got everything I wanted. Yeah. And it's just like I'm sad, but I'm so infinitely happy about what we got from this series and what this series does for context for the movie that I think is incredible, which also in turn does the insight and the stuff that we get for the original trilogy, which I really like.
Context for A New Hope in general that Rogue One already added, but now in turn that this show adds for Rogue One and A New Hope on top of it as well.
Yeah,
is pretty awesome.
And not only that, but I mean, there's other these little tiny strands that go to all of these other projects, like it was pointed out, that Chopper is at Yavin at the same time.
Rebels is all happening at the same time.
Rebels is happening. Yeah. But also somebody pointed this out, and I saw this video, and I really don't remember the creator, so I apologize. But they said, Chopper and K2 were both at the base at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it is absolutely possible that number 1, they spoke, but number 2, they did they planned things together.
War crimes, as I saw one say.
Yeah, that's exactly what I saw.
Yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah. but yeah,
really good to see.
Absolutely, to have a little back and forth with them. But yeah, I mean, look, every single one of these episodes for this final chunk, and I'm gonna call it the finale, just because. And I know it's 3 episodes. I'm looking at it as one solid thing because we kind of had one thing for the first episode, one thing for the second, and then kind of the wrap up for the actual finale episode.
3-act structure, like they've been coming doing. Yeah, it all flows together so well.
Yeah, exactly. And so. I mean, it's just in convenience sake, I'm gonna call it the finale, even though it's it's the finale chunk, really, if we're being realistic. But yeah, I just felt like every aspect of this was just like we got closure that we needed, we got the other stuff that we needed for other characters to be pushed for what we need for like the events of Rogue One to happen and stuff like that. It was just they did everything so perfect. It was great. And it didn't take away from the fact that, we knew where everything was leading to long before, even season 1, episode 1, we knew this was all leading to Rogue One, and it didn't take away at all for any of the events that happened in this entire series, both seasons.
I thought everything added to it.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, it was just great, and I mean, there's plenty of stuff that we're going to talk about and more to get into. But before we get ahead of ourselves, Rico, what were some of your quick reactions to, I guess, the finale chunk?
Yeah, definitely an emotional roller coaster all the way through because one, it's just some of the most like satisfying TV to watch when you watch like a show that's been so consistently good all the way
Yeah.
through, but then to able to wrap things up in such a in such a good way. It's just like a really it's always great to see when it comes to TV shows because not every show really not every great TV show usually sticks their landing, which is just,
Right.
I feel like a pretty common thing. So when they actually do, like I said before, I think it's really a testament of really great television. One of the few times I can remember feeling like man, this is like a really satisfying end to a TV show was like a show like Breaking Bad too. When that show ended, I was like, wow, that was really cool. Like really nice little kind of like just like putting the candle on the cake, or whatever it is, putting the cherry on top of the sundae or whatever it is. But yeah, I just like when they just wrap everything up. Every little character gets like their kind of their final piece of the puzzle, like their where they're placed at in the puzzle as far as like where it leads into the next moments. So I love all of that. And yeah, again, it just hits all these emotional moments that again enhance the impact of certain moments leading in the future as well. So yeah, very satisfying and also very thrilling to watch all the way through as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. You want to get to some big takeaways?
100%.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to give up big takeaways with, like I said, I got everything I wanted and more from this. And one thing that I said multiple times during the recap of season 2 that I really wanted to see was this, the relationship / growing, friendship of Cassian and K2. I wanted to see that before we got to the very end, and just I wanted to see some examples of that because in Rogue One they were such a tight knit, duo at that point. So I really wanted to see, where that began, what kind of forged that, and stuff like that. And I got it. I got that. I felt like, and I got more examples of that in this final chunk where we got to see them kind of playing, like we got to them see like playing,
just hanging out.
Yeah, hanging out, playing a game. We got to see, them. I guess K2 kind of siding with Cassian against the rules because he's been reprogrammed and he's like, I want to follow the rules. We're supposed to be following the rules, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he's, already, I guess, bonded enough with Cassian that he's willing to, go against the rules for Cassian.
Yeah.
And then K2 just kicking major ass during the extraction scenes and stuff like that. Just like no fucks given, just throwing Imperial guards around.
Like the one getting smacked off of the bridge was really, really a great one. Yeah.
Is he with us? Nope. But yeah, I just
every moment of dialogue from him is absolutely hilarious. Like when Bail Organa goes to go see Cassian and goes, "The man you don't like is here."
Yeah. even the very last lines that we get from him when they're actually doing a thing, he's like, "It's nice to have the plan of where we're going."
The flight plan. He goes, "It's so much better when we know where we're going."
So like even that was like, I was like, And we've been saying this for a long time, but like,
waking up humans is very odd or something like that. Because when he's dreaming,
right.
It's just so good.
My like as soon as that ended, I was just like, well, I want to watch Rogue One now. It was just instantly. I was
seamless transition, just like the way the Rogue One ended too. And I knew they were going to do something like that before, but I didn't imagine it's going to be as seamless as they made it. It feel, which is just great.
It was perfect. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I can't say enough how happy I am that we did get those little moments to kind of see this progression of Cassian and K2 kind of, becoming this duo that we get in Rogue One. I was just very happy, even though, there were very quick moments and stuff like that. It wasn't like shoving it at us, but it was just, showing this bond that is formed that we already got immediately in Rogue One. And yeah, I just think they did it in such a good way that I think out of everything, and there was so much to like about, the finale chunk, and there's so many individual parts and so many like just cool parts. And I know you're going to go through a lot of them, and I, we're going to talk about them a little bit more too, of some of the things that I didn't highlight, but like, yeah, everything was great. And so it's hard to even say one takeaway because all of them were great.
Yeah.
But like this was one thing that I was asking for. I was like, I really hope we get some of these moments, and we got them. So I had to. I felt compelled to talk about that for my takeaway.
Yeah.
But Rico, why don't you give us some of your takeaways for the finale chunk? Because I know there's a lot of really cool scenes that we both want to talk about.
Yeah, I tried to kind of pick some stuff that happened in all 3 episodes, of course, just so that each one kind of got their highlight a little bit. Obviously, the first episode of the chunk is obviously full Luthen and Clea all the way,
Yep.
which might have been my favorite episode of the chunk so far. Other than some of the stuff from the finale episode. Every episode had some stuff that I really love.
Right.
But this one all the way through, of course, was the emotional feels right away was already hidden, of course, with just with the way they covered the origin story of how Clea and Luthen actually met. You actually kind of learn Luthen's real name here. Of course, all he did was just switch his last name from Lear to Rail, which I thought was really funny. It's just so like the way it almost is kind of like a metaphor for like his character in general. The way like the real person is right in front of you, but it's not exactly what you're looking at, right?
Right.
So I think that's actually a really cool kind of way that all he did was just switch some things around, but he's still that same person to some degree. But I just kind of like that he was just kind of like what seemed like a mud trooper, kind of like in the same days of like the Solo days, like when he was in the Empire or whatever. He was doing his thing, but then he was hearing the voices, and that's the make it stop kind of came in. But then he hears Clay on the ship, and he decides that he's going to protect this girl, and it just becomes about them, and then we kind of get to see them going, him teaching her different lessons about her become the person that we end up seeing her become just when we first actually meet her in the show, of course. So it just make everything that makes all the sense about her character you see now through flashbacks of how she was raised by Luthen, and there's really more of like a father-daughter relationship as opposed to them just being like business partners, something like that. So I love they established that big personal tie-in. Like we always kind of knew it too, but we didn't really actually like get to see the seeds that were planted that really like kind of formed this relationship. So I thought that was really, really great. And of course, the way it's intercut with Clea doing her like the stealth mission through the hospital is just like extremely, again, the way the show does tension and just like scenes like this. I thought it was just so great, and then the way she's but also the way they kind of intercut some comedy in there too, because she's pushing like the old lady alien too, and while she's getting information, the little old lady's just kind of sitting there twiddling her feet like they're just dangling in the air, and just like I just thought that's really funny the way they're able to kind of like mix those moments of humor in there, even though she's doing something where like literally the galaxy is on the line in a sense. So I thought that's really, really cool. Like again, just the way balancing of tones, I think is just really a way of saying it. But then of course, the final moments where she does finally kind of pull the plug on Luther, which of course is something he would have wanted, but it was just super powerful. But even before that, of course, before this all like the whole hospital stuff with Luther even happens, that the confrontation with Dedra is insane from beginning to end when they finally realize they've kind of been made. And after the conversation with Lonnie too, which is just another thing that was pretty crazy as well. So like this chain of events that kicks off in this whole episode is just tense thriller from beginning to end. But it's all done in such a beautiful way. But I just love the way Luthen and Dedra are playing off each other in the shop. And it's like, is everything in here real? Like only 2 things are in question, and probably like kind of talking about themselves, not so much the artifacts in the room too. So I was like, again, the way they always kind of speak in code in this show, and they're definitely doing that with the way they do with each other. So I just like the whole way they do that, and you just knew that Luthen was not gonna go down like putting his hands up too. So it was just kind of pretty gangster way to kind of for him to go out. So I was really, one of the best Star Wars characters I think that will ever go down in history too. Definitely the most important when it comes to the forming of the rebellion, like whether some people in the other factions of the rebellion want to believe it or not, like he is a big reason why some of the things that did happen. So I think that's pretty cool. The next thing I want to talk about is the fact that like the way all the Imperial characters all kind of get their comeuppance in some kind of form too, right? The only one that really doesn't is probably Krennic, but we only know that, or he only doesn't because we know that he kind of gets his in Rogue One, which I think is really great. We kind of get to see him be the kind of like the gangster of the crew for a moment, particularly in that interrogation scene with Dedra, which I thought was just like a fantastic scene where like the way he just puts his finger on her head, like how did Lonnie get your information? Why was he in there for like 3 hours? And just like, and even the way that like I think her name was Denise Go. Plays as Dedra is just phenomenal. She's incredible throughout the whole series, by the way. But the way that her story ends with her on Arkina 5, the same prison that Cassian escaped from, with Kino Loy and stuff like that, was just like insane, because it's one of them, probably the most controlled prisons they have, too, probably even more so now after the breakout too. And then of course there's just a shot of her kind of breaking down after the lights go out, which just kind of like you want to feel bad for the character, but also like she deserves it at the same time.
Yeah.
So you're just like, yeah, that's kind of what you get. And it's even almost a little more satisfying than her being like killed off like she almost was in on the Gorman massacre, right? Too, like if that would have happened too, like we probably would have been like, yeah, they got her. But then like this is way more satisfying because she felt like she had the victory in her hand, and then it was taken out from her too. Classic Empire too. Like they think the victory is in the palm of her hand, and it's just ripped out from underneath them. I got like part of gas too when hearing him listening to Nemec's manifesto, which was really great. Just getting to hear that again, just and the fact that we now know it's being broadcast all over the galaxy. Was another great callback, of course. But then, of course, the guy coming in like, we're here to like to take you in, and he's like, can I have a moment? And then he just like boom off camera. You're just like, wow, that's just like another poetically kind of like empire-ish way to go out. Like he's not willing to face his consequences. He's willing, he's just gonna take himself out, which is yeah, it's very empire like, I thought. And even someone like Hirt, like you mentioned, the guy in the hallway, of course, when K2SO, and he's the one that K2SO is holding, and probably one of the more brutal Empire deaths I've seen too.
I know.
And just the way he's holding his body there, and he's just taking all the shots as a little meat shield, and then he just kind of gets tossed to the side, just like, yeah, that guy kind of had it coming too. So I thought, just the way that they all kind of get their what's coming to them in some form, in all different ways too. I thought that was really great. Was just very, you love to see some Empire assholes get beat up. So I love it, or even killed. So, but and the kind of coup de grace of the entire show, the final kind of like 5 to 10 minutes, kind of leading all up to those final moments that we kind of lead into the Rogue One movie, right? But just kind of playing that classic Andor theme music, that's the score, and then you kind of cut to all these characters that we've been going through the last 24 episodes, and just kind of seeing where they end as the show ends too. And we know the fates of some of them, we don't know the fates of all of them, but I just thought it was such like a poetic way to end the entire show. I thought it was an absolute masterpiece. But just when you think that we're kind of getting everything that we saw, everything that we were going to see, they kind of do that classic, like kind of cut the black, and then they give us one more little cut, and we're back on Mina Rao. We see B2 again. We're like, oh my God, okay, we didn't forget about B2. Like I thought they just left him, and then we weren't going to see him again. So that I'm really glad that we get that shot. And then of course it shows Bix out in the field holding a baby, which is just like, oh my gosh. If you thought the emotional impact of like everything that happened in Rogue One was already hard enough, it hits even harder knowing the fact that Cassian has the woman and the child out there that the child he'll never know about too. As it goes back to that classic Luthen monologue where he goes, I burn my life for a sunrise I'll never see, kind of a thing. It's exactly what happened with Cassian. But it's a bittersweet ending too, because now we know that at least Cassian still kind of lives on in this kid, whether they know what happened to him or not. It doesn't really matter. It seems like she's at peace with what the decision that she made too. So I think that's it was a nice kind of like again, bittersweet ending, but I think a more beautifully poetic ending at the end of the day too.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you with all of them, but like the ending when they're going through the sequence with the theme going and showing different people, chills.
Yeah,
chills during that.
Krennic and the Death Star.
Yeah.
Saw looking at Jeddah. It's just like, oh, we know exactly what's going to go down with all these things.
that was like, oh man, like chills during that whole part. And yeah, Bix with baby and just like, everything was just, yeah. Instant. It's one of those things where you instantly finish and you're like, well, gotta watch Rogue One. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, not even joking saying that, just was like, I have to watch this movie now. But yeah, you kind of started talking about it, but I know how you said you liked the first episode of The Chunk, and I thought that was like we've been saying, every episode had awesome moments to them.
Yeah.
I think I like the Extraction one almost a little bit more, because like we got this whole like this showdown. We got the suspense of we don't know if they're gonna get to Clea before Cassian's able to get there, and just like the whole thing. And then they finally get there, and then I almost thought they were gonna do one of those trick things where like the Imperial like guard crew that was coming in, I thought they were gonna be on the wrong hallway. And so it was like showing that, and then all of a sudden they were going to open the door and no one was going to be in their hallway, and they were going to walk, and then maybe they were going to go down the elevator, and that was going to be the hallway they were in, type of thing.
Well, they did that earlier because they were like they're above us or something like that, and then they went back to the right floor, and then
right.
Yeah. So I think that they didn't want to double dip on that one. I think.
Yeah, I just was in my head. I was like, well, what if it's not the same floor? Like,
yeah.
Just thinking of things like that, but
yeah, funny they're just on the wrong building in general.
Yeah,
too. Like we're on the same floor, but it's not the right building. And I was like, ooh, maybe there's like I was still waiting for some kind of like swerve on that as well.
Yeah. And I mean the only way they got out of it was K2, and that's perfect K2 fashion, like just taking everybody out like that. But yeah, and yeah, I just chills is the best way I can describe it. But do you want to get to, I don't even know if we can call this predictions, because we know exactly where this leads to, and then we know exactly what Rogue One leads to, and then we know exactly, like, you know what I mean? So, question mark predictions?
Predictions, let's do it.
Predictions! All right, why don't you kick off predictions?
Okay, so I think the interesting of so obviously we know the events of Rogue One, where a lot of these characters go from there. Of course, we know what happens to Saw, we know what happens to Grant, we know what happens to Cassian, of course. We know what happens to K2 and all that. But there's characters that were in this show that do live on that we don't get to see like a future of. Like that, one of the ones I thought of immediately were people like Vel and Wilman, who I assume are probably just still in the rebellion. As they're there on the base when Luke and all of them are there for the Battle of Yavin, of course. So I imagine they just keep fighting on from there. Like who knows if they will also continue to fight on on Hoth and Endor and stuff like that. Like who knows what happens as far as that goes. There's always more to be explored with characters like Mothma. I think I think if you want to still stay in like this timeline thing, and her being a major part of the rebellion, but she's still doing the politicking kind of aspect of it, I feel like I would still like to see some aspects of that, because obviously she's there before the Battle of Endor when they talk about the many Bothans who died to get the information for the second one. Speaking of predictions, you could do a whole series of something set in between those movies now. Because it feels like we always do stuff set between trilogies, like it's between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, or it's set between the original trilogy and the new trilogy. We don't really get stuff that's set between like specific movies, other than Clone Wars, I would say. I mean, obviously, being between timelines, there are set between certain movies, but there's bigger timelines to explore there. But like when it comes to like exploring something between Empire and Return of the Jedi, there's a few years you can still explore there. But I'm sure there's still some stuff that you can do, or again, like A New Hope to Empire, what leads them to the how they get to Hoth, who like is Mon Mothma negotiating like planet bases for them like to hide out there and stuff like that. Like I think there's still some cool stuff you can play with within the timeline of that. I know they want to try to like stray away from the Skywalker timeline a little bit, just so we can get some more original storytelling going on there. But I do think like when you can find, and like we've talked about the certain point of view books, right? And there was like characters within the movies, but it's like telling stories about that. You could do something like that with TV shows set in between, like or even during the events of the movies, and just being like, what are these two people doing that are contributing to certain events in the movie as well? So I think there's stuff you could do there as well. Like I said, like characters like Wilman, Vel. I think those are probably two of the best characters. I think as far as like the rebellion, that'd be kind of cool because they were pretty major players as well. But or even like the formation of some like of the generals, like General Draven, who's kind of the guy who's talking with Cassian a lot in this episode as well. I think there's still a lot to explore, even though a lot of stories have really been wrapped up, so to speak. So I think there's still a lot of cool potential. Or we could do the same thing with different timelines too. Like I want to see something similar with like the like if you did something similar to Clone Wars stuff, like not necessarily the animation show, but we did some live action kind of like a political thriller set in the Clone Wars era.
That'd be cool.
Some stuff set after Return of the Jedi, where setting up the stuff with the Battle of Jakku, which is kind of like the big final battle that kind of like destroyed the Empire for good. It's something that's been covered in books like the Aftermath trilogy. And in Battlefront 2, the main story is kind of set around there as well. But I still think you could do like a live action TV show that kind of tells the general public, what the fallout of that final battle and the end of the Empire was really like. So I think that'd be kind of a fun thing to explore as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if nothing else, Andor has shown that you can take a pocket of, time and have just like strings from events that we know.
Yeah.
And still have a very, very fleshed out group of people, grounded series, group of people that are existing, before, during, after these big events that we've already heard about and stuff like that. So it's totally doable. And yeah, I would be very interesting if we did get something set between Empire and Jedi. Like that would be something very interesting. Because I mean, that's when they're rebuilding the Death Star. Like, like we've got to figure out how they figured that out. Like,
what about the many Bothans who died to get those plans? Like, what if we got something on that?
Yeah. But I mean, it's as far as predictions, like I was saying, it's pretty hard to share predictions other than that, like of like other characters you would like to kind of follow, because we don't really know 100% what happened to them after Rogue One and like more so into the original trilogy. But like, I only had one question, and it was kind of like Bix's child that we see at the very, very end, like you were talking about. Do we think we'll ever find out who that child grows up to be? Because it's that, I mean, talking about things that we could build a series around, they would be, at a somewhat young adult age, during Empire, during, you know what I mean? Like enough so where they could be like a character, like a main character that we could start following, or even after Return of the Jedi, type of thing, where they're like, what, 20s at that point? Like
maybe closer to like the sequel trilogy for sure.
Well, yeah, in the sequel trilogy, I think they would definitely be in like the 30s, right?
Yeah, at least 20s to 30s.
Yeah, something like that. But like, I mean, you could find, how old was Luke Skywalker supposed to be in A New Hope? Like 18? Like we could,
16, I think.
16? Yeah. Young adult, basically. So we could have him in like that series that you were thinking about between Empire and Return of the Jedi. We could technically have him be that age, 16, 18.
He was 19.
19?
He was actually 19. Yeah.
Okay.
I just Googled it to make sure.
But yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is that would be a really cool kind of a continuation, but not a continuation type of thing. And we could still have this new original character and like built into these major events that we already know, and kind of just, centralize on that and figure out what he's doing now type of thing. So I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah. I just think, I don't want it to end. I know it's over, but
I hope Tony Gilroy does another series.
Yes.
Hopefully done in again, for me, I hopefully it's done in another timeline, just to see what he can do with like a different aesthetic, I think too. But as long as you're touching on the important themes of whatever's going on in that time, I think you can make something good out of anything. So but I think if he wants to do another one, he seems like a guy who's pretty set on like, if I do something, then he kind of moves on to like another thing. But if they can be like, hey, do you want to do like another one of these stories, or do you want to expand another story in this world, maybe probably with one of these other characters, that could be something you can do. I'm totally in for it. Tony Gilroy is totally like, he's become one of the top like guys to look for, I think. Like if a Star Wars thing's coming on, you see Tony Gilroy in the project, like pay attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. So anyway, I guess we can officially say that is a wrap on the Andor series. Like we've finally reached the end. The only thing left to do is to watch Rogue One. Like
there we go.
That's what we do. But
rebellion.
For the rebellion. In the meantime, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of the 3-episode series finale of the Andor show? And what are you hoping to kind of see next with some of these characters that we don't know exactly what happens to them? Do you think we ever will know what happens to them? And what would you like to see a series kind of created from? Do you want a completely original series? Do you want it to be based in or around some bigger events? There's really no wrong answer. If they can make a good series, it's going to be good no matter where they set it. So As always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Popping Off presents That Recap Show.